Was Moses an actual person, for example, only one person, or a combination of individuals as leaders in the Old Testament stories of Genesis and Exodus?
Yeah, he never made Genesis. No. Well, as you may know, the current historical judgment is that we have no evidence that Moses existed or that any of that happened. So Moses lives in the memory of Israel, and the church trades on Israel's memory. So that if it wasn't Moses, it was probably another person with the same name. And we know that the traditions about Moses are layered and complex. We used to call that JED&P. So you get the side of Moses you want, kind of the way you get Jesus from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. And I think probably all of us are complex characters like that who have layers of identity. So I think Moses occupies the central position in the memory and the tradition of Israel. Whatever historical data lies behind it, and we really don't know. We sort of trust the tradition. And I don't think we can do better than that. So we got waylaid by the Jesus Seminar and by those kinds of scholars that want to debunk Scripture by asking modern historical questions. And those modern historical questions, it seems to me, are really dead ends. They don't lead us anywhere. So we are always deciding how and in what ways we can trust the tradition as distinct from modern historical analysis.
I think I would just say, does it matter? I don't know who asked this question, but...
That's what I was saying.
Yes, that's what I would say. Yeah.
But it does matter that the Scripture is there for us to walk in. The incredible text with all its complex history and all the human life and all the encounter with God that is packed into it. It is a real thing. It's a real place of encounter with God right now. So one thing that I have always admired about the rabbinical tradition is that it takes Scripture, every word of it, so seriously that it argues and grapples with it and disagrees with it and builds little underground tunnels from one piece of Scripture to another, right? And we as Christians, in a sense, have lost sight of that tradition of being able to understand Scripture as a companion or as an adventurous country that we might take a trip into, where we will meet Moses, because Moses represents wherever God is giving us leaders that will lead us into new places that God is leading us to.
It occurs to me when you talk that way, we also don't know who Pharaoh was, or that whether that Pharaoh really existed, except that Pharaoh always shows up. He shows up as absolute oppressive power. So Moses is always the counterpoint to that absolute oppressive power in any empire or any political instance. It's the same deal for Moses as it is for Pharaoh.
Yes.
Yep. So what you're insisting on is the urgency of reading the Scripture with contemporaneity.
Yes.
And I think that liberal Protestantism in some ways has been hijacked by modern historical questions that lead us away from that.
Well, the trouble with modern historical questions is they assume that everything today is different because we're modern. Whereas in fact the patterns that the Scripture displays to us and and then interprets for us in the light of the reality of a loving and creative and justice demanding God are the same. That's what your book's
That's exactly right. Yep. Yep.